Hi, my name is Erica Chavez. I'm a fellow statistics teacher just like you, and I've been using SPA4 in my classes for a while now. And I'm here to show you around the Sapling website. I know sometimes statistics teachers, you may be the only one in your school, so you might not know who you can talk to get answers for some of your questions. Well, I'm here today to show you around the Sapling site for SPA4 and to show you how this can make your life so easy as you're preparing for your classes. So let's take a look. First, let's take a look down the center panel. The center panel has student resources at the top and then some teacher resources after that. You'll notice that these are in a light gray, and that simply means that you can see them, but your students cannot. And as you scroll a little further down the center panel, you'll see that the chapters begin. And so each of these are collapsible just by clicking on the plus/minus sign. And each chapter is broken into the individual lessons. So this is lesson 1.1. There's a recommended assignment, which is already made for you. There's other book-based questions, which you can give your students as a second assignment. And there's additional questions. These are not found in the book, but they're very useful, especially for tests and quizzes because they're not in the book. Finally, there is a category called Lesson App and Exercise Videos. These are the videos that will help to teach the different concepts that are in this lesson if you want to assign these to your students. And every section is organized that same way. Once you get towards the end of the section, there's a chapter review, additional questions that go with the chapter review. So there's the recommended and then some extras. There's other book-based questions as well as some exercise videos and the chapter 1 test that is found in the book. Then we'll move on to chapter 2, and this just continues to repeat all the way through the chapters. Next, let's look over to the right-hand side. On the right-hand side, you'll see the student ebook. Let's click on it. The student ebook is a really great resource because your students have access to this ebook anywhere that they have the internet. So they don't have to necessarily worry about carrying their hardback book back and forth. They can just simply log into Sapling and they have the book right there. If a screen comes up asking you to enter your email address, they can skip that step. And if it asks you to accept cookies, I always do that. And so here off to the left-hand side, we have the table of contents. And so let's navigate to lesson 1.1, the art and science of data, science and art of data. You'll notice as the students are looking and reading through this book that the vocabulary words are underlined and hyperlinked. And so anywhere where they're reading, they can just click on that and they get the definition of the word. So that's really, really neat. And then we have some activities, and all of these different hyperlinks will take them to different definitions that they would like to know. Now, as they get into the examples, you'll notice that at the end of the example, there's a recommendation that they try exercise 9, which goes with this example. Now, the neat thing is this is also hyperlinked. So if they click on it, it will take them to exercise 9, which matches the topic that they just read about in the book from page 6. So if they click back here, they can go back to the example and jump back and forth. So that's a really convenient way to read an example in the book and then go right to the questions that practice that skill. Also, you'll notice that this particular question has a little play button by it. That will take them to a video that teaches them this particular skill using another certified teacher. Now the exercises come in groups of 4. So this particular play button would have some instruction on categorical and quantitative variables, and you'll notice there's question number 10, 11, and 12 before we get to the next play button. So this one would cover this skill of frequency tables and relative frequency tables. They can watch a video on that. And then there's questions number 13, 14, 15, and 16. And so the exercises are grouped in pairs of 4. So that makes it very, very easy if you want to assign the video and then have them do a set of 4, or you can have them do the first 2 in each set. So they're organized that way throughout. So that is super helpful. There are some other neat little bells and whistles off to the side. For example, the students can highlight and they kind of create their own little notebook or a workbook off to the side. And they can, by just simply selecting, they can create flashcards that are coming like straight from terms and concepts from the book. So they can really interact with this textbook more than just simply reading it. There's lots of other little things to help them to remember the most important concepts. So there's annotations and things that they can do to really personalize their book, even though it's online. So it's super cool. I wish whenever I was in school, they had books that would link me back and forth. That would have been super amazing. We had to actually turn pages. It was crazy. Okay, so this is the student book. Next, I'll go back to the main page. Next, I'd like to show you the teacher book. So right here is the annotated teacher's edition for this SPA course. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And it's going to open up to a page that's really similar to what the students have. But the teachers, they have some little extra features that the kids do not have. For example, all the answers in the side margin. So we can have that right on our computer as we're teaching class, and you can have all the answers right at your fingertips. Another neat thing in the teacher book is that there's all kinds of extras in those side margins that are linked. So these full solutions, this would take you to a Word document that would have those solutions that you can open up and you could print. And so everywhere that you navigate through in this book, anything that is in this little side margin with these special little TRM icons is going to be hyperlinked to resources that you could open and print. Let's take a look at one more part of the teacher's book. So this is the beginning of chapter 1. This is linked, so it's a professional development video by the authors so that you can get an introduction to the chapter. Here's our PowerPoint slides, also a download, and the data files for all of the examples, the data files of the problems in chapter 1. So really, really neat. We can just navigate by clicking across, and you can of course make it bigger or smaller as you would like your view to be. We also have this ability to search over here off to the side, and of course you have all the different features, so you can kind of make it a little smaller if you'd like, that the students have. So you have the ability to make annotations and notes to yourself as you're teaching particular concepts. So the teacher's book is really, really awesome. It's great to have the resources this easily at hand, and it's also nice from time to time if you want to display something specifically straight off your computer onto the board. You have this at your access. So very, very cool. Annotated Teacher's Edition. You don't have to lug the heavy books around. You can just use that. Okay, next I want to show you a little bit more about the assignments themselves. And so if you scroll down here, let's take a look at this very first recommended assignment from lesson 1.1. So by clicking on that, you're taken to a page where you can actually see the questions that are the recommended assignment for this lesson. So these are the same ones that you'll see like in the front of your book. Whenever you open up and you're like, oh, what should I assign? You can look at the recommended assignment. These are them. So these questions are in the book. They're also programmed into this digitally. So for example, this box office smash, you can see the type of question that it is: sorting, a numeric entry, multi-select. Let's open it up and get a better look. So right now we're able to see the solution. You can toggle that off or on. And remember, you're looking at this on the teacher side, so of course the student wouldn't see this. And so here's the particular question. It shows you the right answer. So they are identifying which ones are categorical and quantitative, which variables are categorical and quantitative. If you want to see it just as a blank question view, it would look like this originally. So the students take these and they drag them into the right boxes, and then they're able to check their answer. And if they get their answer wrong, then it gives them feedback about why. And as a coder also of this particular course, we try to cover as many possible errors as we can. But as you can imagine, there are a lot of ways to mess this up. So if they did not come up with something that we anticipated, then they will get a default feedback, which really just gives them the definitions of these different terms to help them along their way. However, if they make one of these specific mistakes, then they would get this specific feedback, which would remind them of something that they did wrong and maybe why. And so we can really target their mistakes by being able to anticipate some common errors. We can also use this arrow right here to thumb to the next question. So this was on Choose Your Power. Again, here's the solution down at the bottom. Let's look at this in question view. So they're creating a frequency table and a relative frequency table. Most of the time, whenever teachers think about these online homework programs, you think about multiple choice and you're like, oh, everything is going to be multiple choice. The kids are going to get tired of it. We have a lot of variety built into this program, so you'll see that these are numeric entry. So they actually have to figure out the whole frequency table themselves and then enter the values. And they can't just guess with that because it will take them a really long time to get it right that way. So this motivates the students to actually do the question because they're going to be able to get it right much faster by actually putting effort into it. And so then here we have another question about sorting the variables into the right categories and so on. Now, suppose you didn't want to have this question on this assessment. You can click right here to remove a question from the assessment. You can also favorite questions as well. And so you can get a good look of the questions just by thumbing through them and see what's in this recommended assignment. There are only 5 in this particular recommended assignment. So let's take a look at the next bucket. Going back, I click again. Okay, so the next bucket is other book-based questions. So whenever we coded these questions, we put the recommended assignment in first, and then we picked some extra questions because sometimes you just might want your kids to do a little bit more. And so here are 3 more questions on the frequency and the relative frequency tables and 1 more question on classification. So you get some extra questions just in case you want them to do a little bit more practice on a particular topic. Next, the additional questions, these are the ones that are not in the book. And so these ones are really great to pull from for tests and quizzes. And it looks like I have already done a little bit of pulling here myself. So here are some extra questions. This is on classifying individuals. You can get a feel for what the question is just by reading this. You can see what type of question it is just by looking over here. And you can even change the weight of the questions. By the way, this might not be a default feature in the program. It's probably something that I turned on right over here. So if I were to take this away or click it, you can see extra information about the questions just by editing the columns here. Now I will show you a little bit later about these pools, but there's a way that you can create randomized assignments and randomized assessments. So I will show you that in just a bit. Let's go back because I want to show you that last bucket, these lesson app and exercise videos. So I click on this link right here and you will see that for lesson 1.1, we have 3 videos available that you could assign to your students. The lesson app, which covers all the learning targets, and the exercise videos. And these would be like the student would watch them. SAVI is a video file, and there's not like a right or wrong. They're not going to get feedback on this one, but it will show you that they've watched it or did not watch it. So those are the different things that you have in each particular lesson. So you might be wondering, well, how do I actually assign this to my kids? Well, right now, all of these ones that are darker, your students could already see. So one thing you could do is you can simply say to your students, I want you to complete recommended assignment 1.1 tonight, and just tell them verbally to do it. If you don't want them to see this, so I had actually went through mine and I didn't want my students to see these because I like to save these for tests and quizzes. So what I did is I clicked on them and I went to right away. Actually, originally it would say show and hide. So I'm going to click on this option right here and you can hide it. That means the students can't see it, but you can. So that's what the light gray means. If I wanted to hide this, for example, I would click on it and I would click hide. But I like for my students to see these 2 buckets because I use them often and I don't want them to see this one. So I hide it from them. So you could just verbally say to your students, all right, I want you to complete lesson 1.1, the other book-based questions tonight. Or if you'd like, you can actually put in a due date like I have here. So let me scroll up to the top and show you the easiest way to put in dates if you're interested in doing so. Activities and due dates. This is the ultimate place to go for organization. So we see all the different assignments that are here that your students could possibly complete. And you can check visible or invisible very easily right here. You can also have it listed as a homework assignment or as a test or a quiz, or this would actually require your students to not only answer the question, but to also give them a text box where they would give an explanation for their answer. And then I created my own grading policies for homework and tests and quizzes. So I'll show you how to do that in a bit. A homework assignment gives unlimited tries, so they can keep getting feedback if they're making mistakes. A test or a quiz will only give them one try. So after they do their very first submission, that's all they get. You can have it be a certain number of points, and this just shows the category that it's in. Here's where you would set the date. So if I wanted this to be open for my students, let's say, wow, my back in time. Let me zoom forward a bit. So let's suppose I wanted to open on May 19th, and it's going to tell me, well, make sure that you set your due date after the opening date. So I'm going to go ahead and select my due date for the 20th. You can even say what time of the day you want it to be open and what time of the day you want it to close. And anything that you have due for your students within the next 2 weeks will appear at the top of their page. You don't have to click save, just simply by setting it in here, it's going to be all set. While I'm here, let me talk to you quickly about these two things. These are super helpful. These are called offsets and extensions. Offsets and extensions are really they take you to the same place, the same page, and it allows you to give your students extra time or to let them have an earlier start. So for example, for this particular assignment, I could click right here, my students would be here, and I could select a particular student's name, and I can say, okay, instead of being due by May 20th, I'm going to give you until Monday, the 23rd. So you can set a student to have extra time if you'd like. When you do that, you got to click save off to the side. You could also give them an earlier start by using this here to set an earlier opening date. And then you can quickly and easily go between the different assignments if you have to change them for more than one assignment. So I love, love, love that feature, and I use it a lot. Always going to have students that are like, please, can I have an extra day? And so that's where you can do that. So let me go back to the main page. And as this is loading, you can see now that this is at the top. So I love putting dates on there because then my students know exactly what's coming up and what's expected of them. And that's super, super helpful for keeping them on track. That's if you don't want to just verbally tell them. So it'll show it down there as well. Okay, so next you might be wondering, well, what if I don't want to give this assignment exactly as is? I mean, you're like, well, it's 5 questions and I want to maybe give them some more. Or maybe later in the year, you're like, I want to throw in some extra review questions. If you click right here on the question bank, you are taken to the entire question bank, which has over 3,400 questions in it. And so you could choose any question out of any of these categories to add to a particular assignment. So let's suppose that maybe we're later in the year and we want to throw some additional concepts in. Or maybe you just want to create a test or a quiz. So you could click on any particular topic that you want. I always reserve these additional questions here. These are ones that are in the book. These are ones that are not in the book for tests and quizzes. But let's suppose that we're going to choose this category here. And we want to add this question, and this question to this assessment. So we just simply click on it and click the word add. And you will see that now there's 8. So now if I click right here on this assessment, there's the original 5, and then we have our 3 new ones down at the bottom. So it is really easy to add questions. And you can see that there are lots and lots and lots and lots to choose from. You can even have a video be part of an assignment. So this is really a neat way to be able to customize. It's very, very easy to do that. You can even write your own custom questions if you'd like. So that is all available to you. Next, let me give you a little introduction as to how I create quizzes in Sapling. So if I wanted to create, like, say, a Chapter 1 test, I go down here to this Add an Activity thing because I like to create my own, and I would choose Assessment. So by doing so, it's going to ask you to give it a name. Maybe I will do like a Chapter 1 to like a cumulative test. There's a grade, you can set your time frame. I generally leave all of these things as they are. Let's go save and continue. And this is going to take us to the page where we can start to add questions to this assessment. So let's add some questions. Let's go to the question bank. Okay, so maybe if this is a Chapter 1 to test, maybe I will pull some questions out of this additional questions where the students have never seen these before, they're top secret. And I can add these ones to this test. And maybe I will choose some out of Chapter 2. Now let's suppose that for this particular question, this particular skill, I want my kids to do one of these, but I don't want all my students to get the same question. So I can select a group of questions that are all on the same skill and click this thing Pool. And then I'll go Create Pool. And you can name it something specific if you want. You would say, I would like you to select one of these questions or two of these questions out of the total of 3. This is a really nice way to randomize your assignment for your kids if you're doing an assessment. So that means that when your students go to take the test, they would all get this question here, and they would all get this question here, but a third of them would get each of these 3 questions. So they would get them not all the same, and that's a really easy way to do that. And if you use this as a quiz, then they don't get them all in the same order. So let's take a look over here at grading settings. Grading settings allows you to have this as a homework or as a test quiz. Whenever you have it as a test quiz, that means your students will not get multiple tries, they will not get feedback, they cannot see the resources. And so this means that they just get that one shot. And then you could create your own, which I've created many of my own. So that is a really, really helpful thing. By clicking Save, now I have this to be scored as a quiz or to run as a quiz. You can also do things like have time limits and such. So like when I've created my own, I will use this for my college kids too. And sometimes if it's like the final, they get 2 hours and 30 minutes or an hour and 45 minutes. Enforce the order means they have to answer questions in that order. And so by choosing my questions and creating pools, my students get a variety of questions. It's really easy to have all these different versions going on at the same time. And then they get them in a random order, and then they can't go back to them if you select things to be that way. So by creating new, you get all kinds of different options and ways that you can kind of help to keep students honest in their work. One more thing I want to show you about these questions, and this is something that you'll have to kind of look for. So I'm going to go into this additional questions bucket, and I'm going to see if I can find some questions that are algorithmic in nature, and I will show you what I mean by that. So let's go into the question bank, and let me take a look here in 1.1, these additional questions, and let me see what I can find. Okay, it tells you here if it's added to the assessment or not. And so let me take a peek here at this particular question. Okay, I found an algorithmic question on my first try. Now, an algorithmic question is one that not only could you put it in a pool, but it also has different variations within itself. And so I see this little thing that says sample variable sets, which means this particular question has different versions to it. So if I click on, see what's here. If If I click on sample variable sets, it changes. So even if you assign this one question, students are going to get different versions of it. I love using algorithmic questions on tests and quizzes because the students don't get the same thing, even if you only select this one question. Now, if I go through, see how that option's not there anymore. So I know this one is not algorithmic, this question is static. However, whenever this question is given to the students, the choices will not necessarily be in this order for them. The order does randomize. So there's all kinds of little things built into these. This one here is algorithmic because it has that sample variable sets. Those are my favorite ones to pick for tests and quizzes. So let's take one last look before we wrap up today. I want to show you a little bit about my own class. So I've had this tab sitting over here so that I can show you some personalization that I've done with my own. Now this is my college course that I use. So my kids take a chapter 1-2 test and I put this little title in here. I like to put the link to Staplet.com. To do that, you go right here and instead of adding an assessment, you add, instead of adding a resource, you can link to a file or website. So you can put links to. Even like I put my link to MS Teams right here. And so suppose we want to see how our students have done. So let me go ahead and click into this. This was the Chapter 1, Day 1 problems. I gave my students 15 questions. Here's their responses. By clicking over here, this is my favorite. I can see how my students did at a glance. A dark green circle means they got it right on the first try, and the lighter it gets, the more tries they took, all the way into the reds. So I can just scan right down through my students and I can see how they did on this particular assessment. And I can see if there's any students that are having like particular problems. And I can see like this student right here, that's not a good look because it looks like they were not doing super great. And you can look down the columns to see if there's any particular question that was hard for them. Also, if we look right here under question overview, you can see how the students have completed on all of these different questions. So by clicking that little down arrow, I can see I got a lot of students who got it right here. They see a little bit of pink, right there. It allows me to see how my students did on each question really quickly at a glance. You can also look at particular students' responses. So let me come back here. If a student tells me I could not figure out question number 1, I can click on that particular student's assignment and I can see what they put in as they were working. So this particular student took 7 attempts to get this thing right. And I can see what they entered for their first attempt, and I can see what they entered for the second attempt, and so on. And that way, if I need to talk with a student about this particular skill, I know what they were thinking, or at least I can kind of see what they're thinking just by what they've selected and what they have done. So it's really helpful to see, for one, if they gave up right away, how many times did they try, and of course you can edit their score. So all of these features are so amazing. I have been so thrilled to use this in my classes. My students love it. The feedback is so targeted that it helps them along their way. So they don't have to ask me as many questions, because whenever they read the feedback in between tries, they can learn a little bit about what they did wrong and why. And so my students, I get really great feedback about this. They enjoy it, and it's also so varied that they don't really get tired of it. So it's a really amazing tool. Makes my life simple. I hope it makes your life simpler too. And I hope this video was helpful. There's all kinds of extra things that you can learn through SPA4, the Sapling site. So if you need more information, schedule a demonstration with your rep, and they can show you a little bit more about the features in the gradebook and how to add extra resources and how to be able to view these assessments from your students' eyes. So it's really neat. I love it, and I hope you do too. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.